Ladies and gentlemen, this is your spoiler warning for Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 5, The Bells. If you have not seen The Bells, then do not watch this video. Tons of spoilers to come. That's your fair warning. With that said, let's get on to the video. And fair warning, although I have seen this episode twice, I haven't seen it in about 10 days. So if I can't remember specific lines of dialogue and things like that, it's because I haven't seen it in about 10 days. But I have seen it twice, so I have a fully formed opinion on this episode. So let's get started. So we open with Varys talking to this girl. It's implied that he is trying to poison Daenerys, and I didn't catch that first time, but rewatching it, I was able to figure that out. I was interested to see where that went, and then with what happened in a little bit, that obviously didn't go anywhere. But that was a good scene. I do like seeing Varys. He is one of my favorite characters. And of course, we move on to the scene with Jon and Varys, where he is talking to her about, you know, how dangerous Daenerys is, and his stance does not change. He is committed to his queen, and there's nothing that Varys is going to be able to do to change that. So he's like, no, she's my queen. We're not going to talk treason. Next, we see Tyrion go up to Dany in her war room. And this is just a sad scene because her war room is empty. She used to have it filled with people giving her advice and telling her, you know, what was up, you know, but now it's just empty. It's just her, and she is sad, she's lonely, and she's got few people left in the world. You know, there's Jon, there's some people she trusts, but she's got so little left, and it's really sad to see this. And after, like, this scene is done really well, and we see this shot of her face, which is just like, whoa. You can just see how messed up she is. Like, she's not taking this well. She is emotionally distraught, and she is not handling the death of Missandei or her dragons or Jorah well. It's deeply affecting her, and Emilia Clarke is great in this scene, and it was just seeing that, it was just so interesting because that was something I'm not used to seeing in Daenerys. I haven't seen her cry in in a long time. Let's just say that. So, well, actually, I suppose she cried in episode 3, but that's beside the point. Seeing her this emotionally distraught is just worrying, you know. So after that, then, you know, she talks with Tyrion, and he gives up Varys. He says, you know what, it was him. He betrayed you, and he tells him that, and he touches Varys, and Varys is like really surprised because, I mean, I watched a behind the scenes video where someone was saying that you know, Varys has never been touched before. So Conleth Hill, if I'm remembering his name correctly, it was great in that scene and the way he reacted to that. I really like that, and he is great in the opening of this episode. And it's really sad that Tyrion did that to him, did him dirty like that. But, you know, he did what he thought was right, and ultimately it wasn't. But Varys has this line, if I recall correctly, where he says that he hopes Tyrion is right, which I genuinely believe. He hopes that Daenerys is not going to be bad for the realm. He hopes that she is good, is going to be good. She is not going to, you know, murder lots of people and cause tons of carnage. And he hopes that he's wrong about what he firmly believes about her, but ultimately he is right. And then we have this great shot of Drogon and Daenerys and Jon, and he just appears from the dark background, and Daenerys is there, and she gives the softest Dracarys that I've ever heard. Normally when she says Dracarys, it's out of pride. She's happy that she's defeating her enemies. She takes satisfaction in that because that's just what she does. But here, it's she's wrecked. This is just one more person that has either, well, now he's died, but has betrayed her, and that's hard for her. And she takes no pride in this murder, and it is a murder, and he dies. And then we cut to this scene of Grey Worm talking with Daenerys, and she gives him the only thing that Missandei owned, and he decides to throw it in the fire and burn it. And that was a very interesting scene. I was not expecting him to go that way, but it's the way he went. And then after that, he, you know, makes the logical next step and kills lots of people. We'll get to that later. So then Jon comes in, and I really like this shot because of just how it's staged. We got all this stuff with the war up front, and then in the background, while this stuff is all happening, we have these two very important people. There's Daenerys and there's Jon, and we see how they're just completely split. just by the framing of everything. Jon's in that hallway and she is by the fireplace, and it's just framed really well. And then I like the way that the scene is done. He moves forward and goes a step closer. It's just really beautifully shot. The directing in this episode is great, and we'll see more of that later. So then, of course, there's a scene where they try to make things normal. They're trying to just have their normal life, and then it just doesn't work for Jon. And she's really trying, and then Jon he pulls back, and it just is not working for him. And that's the moment when she has this connection with Jon, and she wants to hold onto that. And this is one of the few things that she has left in this world, is this connection with Jon, because so many people have died, just that she has come to know. And this is one of the few things that she has left. And when he can't just be with her, then that's it for her. If I recall the line correctly, she says, "Let it be fear." But I could be misremembering it. I haven't seen it in 10 days. So that's going to be my excuse for the whole review. You're welcome. Next, we have this scene with Daenerys, Tyrion, and Grey Worm, where she's basically saying, this is how it's going to go down. We're just going to storm King's Landing. I'm going to give you a signal. You're going to know what it is, because it's going to be really obvious, which is, of course, deliberately vague dialogue so that the audience doesn't figure out exactly what's happening. But, TV shows and movies do that all the time, so it doesn't bother me that much. And Tyrion, of course, is trying to convince her that when the bells ring, to stop fighting, because that means that they've surrendered. He's very clear about that. When the bells ring, then Cersei has given up, they've surrendered, the battle is over. He's super clear about that. She's basically just like, okay, doesn't have a lot to say about it. And then she reminds him that if he betrays her again, that will be the last time that he betrays her, which is, it makes sense for her. And moving on from that, we have the scene between Davos and Tyrion, where Tyrion is asking him a favor, and Davos is just great to see. He's like, I'm not going to like this favor, am I? And that was a great moment. It's very little. I don't have much to say about that, but I just like talking about Davos because he's great. So then, of course, Arya and the Hound arrive, which was great. I wasn't entirely sure if they were going to arrive this episode. I was kind of thinking about the timeline of things. But what's happened is basically the troops have stayed here for a little bit. They didn't immediately get to King's Landing and then fight. They've been here for a little bit, so there was enough time for them to also get here, which is pretty cool. And then basically they're talking to the soldier, and he's like, we can't let you pass. And then the Hound's like, hey, we're gonna kill the queen. It's gonna be cool. And I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but it's just great to see those two together. I love their on-screen chemistry and what they bring to the table. And then, of course, we have this wonderful scene, one of the best scenes in the entire episode, but not the best, between Tyrion and Jaime. And Tyrion comes in and he's talking to Jaime, and he's like, how'd they catch you? And there's this very great visual where he just raises his hand, and then he's like, you could have just taken that off. Which is, God, Jaime, I do love Jaime, but, obviously that was a very simple solution that he did not think of, which is unfortunate for him. And this is just a great scene where Tyrion talks about how important Jaime was in his life, and it's really just such a fantastic moment between these two people, showing how much Jaime really meant to Tyrion and how important their relationship was in just keeping Tyrion sane and just helping him along as a person to not feel like a monster. And that I think is great, and I'm glad that they really emphasized that with this scene. It was a great scene, and I was just really fond of it, and it was just a moment I really wasn't expecting from this episode, but I was really glad that I got. And these, by the way, these actors, Nikolai and Peter, are absolutely brilliant, so shout out to them for just being great actors. Then we step back. We've had all this stuff building up to it. We've had Varys' death. We've had a scene with Jon and Daenerys. We've had this stuff with just all the stuff before, the pre-battle stuff, and then we are at this moment. We see all of the ships here, and it's like, okay, this is what's happening. Okay, we see lots of moments of King's Landing, and I really like how well King's Landing is visualized in this set. There's lots of great shots, lots of stuff we haven't seen before. Later we'll see some shots from high up where we can like see all of King's Landing, and it's just done really well. It's better realized than King's Landing has ever been before in Game of Thrones, in my mind at the very least. But we just get lots of great shots. We see what the positions the soldiers are in, we see what they're doing, we are in the moment with them as they are being attacked, and I like the way that's done, how we are staying with them. Everyone's running to positions, everyone's getting here, doing that, doing whatever, and then it's just great how we see all of that stuff. And then of course we see all of these, what are they called, scorpions, and they have a good number of them up here. And we just see lots of what's going on. And then of course we see the civilians of King's Landing. Everyone's panicking, they're trying to get to safe places, there's people going inside, there's people doing stuff that's not that important. And it's just some great shots. And of course Arya and the Hound arrive, which is just kind of badass to see. And Jaime, we see that because I forgot to mention, of course, that Tyrion had released him, which means that he of course betrayed Daenerys. Jaime was released, and he makes it inside, and then we see the Golden Company come out, and some of these shots do look ever so slightly off to me. They almost look like too shiny or too polished or something. I'm not entirely sure what it is. There was one shot in particular, I didn't save it for this video, but there's one shot in particular that just looks super polished and kind of fake. But that's like a minor complaint, because when I'm invested in the episode, it doesn't really bother me. But there's just certain shots that don't look like grounded and real and even gritty in the slightest. They just look really polished and I don't know, it stands out as a little bit weird to me. But that's a minor nitpick. And we get this great shot. I was watching some behind the scenes video or another where the director compared it to the shot in Battle of the Bastards, where it comes up from behind Jon and it shows the opposing army. And I really love how we stay with the people of King's Landing for this, and we see, hey, this is what they're facing, and these people are attacking them, and that's great. And I just like how well that's done. And we see basically that there are some Dothraki left. It seemed from the episode before the Long Night that there were just a handful of Dothraki that had escaped, maybe a dozen or so, maybe a little bit more. But here it seems that there's a little bit more. We can only see like maybe 8 or 10 or so in this shot, but we'll come back to Dothraki later. We of course see Tyrion and Jon and Davos, and Tyrion reminds Jon, he's like, hey, when the bells ring, this means to stop fighting. Tyrion keeps bringing this up because he doesn't want the people of King's Landing to be harmed. When the bells ring, that means stop fighting. That means they've surrendered. He's very clear about this point. And we see lots of perspectives of everybody. We see Cersei looking upon King's Landing, looking at everything. And oh my god, just the look on her face, it's so smug. It's like, oh my god, Cersei. And Lena is great in this episode. She's always been fantastic as Cersei, and she's great in this one, even though she doesn't get a ton to do. She does get one scene in particular, which is brilliant later, which we'll get to, but she's just great as always. And we see how everyone is coming into the Red Keep, and how oh god, her plan is so dastardly. The way that what she's doing and how she's bringing these people in here, she's just kind of messed up, but she's really smart. So she's a really smart person. We see how the gates get closed and all these people are stuck behind here, and then of course Jaime got caught back there. The Arya and the Hound were able to make it past into the Red Keep, but Jaime wasn't. So he tried to get some guard attention. It wasn't working, and he knows King's Landing, so he goes off somewhere else to make his way there. And we of course see where he's going later, which makes sense. That's gonna work. And we just see lots of great shots of these actors. Lena's great. We see, oh my god, we see Peter as Tyrion, and he's great. And we see just basically these very like these pre-battle moments, these calm before the storm moments, where we know stuff's about to go down. These Lannister soldiers are just waiting with bated breath as stuff is about to go down. And we see all of their ships. It's unclear how many of their ships are just normal ships, or if literally every single one is outfitted with Scorpion. It doesn't seem that way though. It's hard to say exactly how many are outfitted with Scorpions, but it can't be that many. But maybe they are trying to say that it literally is every single one. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So then, of course, we see that now I'm forgetting this character's name. So he sees that Euron sees that in the speck. He sees a speck in the distance, and it is, of course, the dragon. I like these shots as the dragon gets closer and closer, and then Drogon goes for those ships, and we see just so many ships, but again, it's not clear how many of them actually have these scorpions, and Drogon is just able to take them out, which is just like, I was not expecting to be this easy. And then, of course, Drogon comes for the ship that Euron's on, and then Euron has to jump off, and then there's great shots from behind Drogon as we see Drogon attacking the ships and going straight for here, and then they try to take out Drogon with these scorpions, and of course they fail, and Drogon takes them out, and boom. And it turned out that whole scene, it was easier to take them out than I was expecting based on episode 4, the previous episode, basically because we saw that Euron was able to take out the other dragon from a great distance, but this time it was much harder. So the balance of those two things, where scorpions aren't that effective, but they were actually super effective last episode, doesn't totally mesh well, because you've got two different ideas there. Either they're really useful, or they're not that useful. They might be helpful, but they aren't in this case. But there was some stuff they did to make it work a little bit better. I liked one of the things they did where they showed how difficult it was to maneuver the scorpions. That was something. Also, it's not clear exactly how many scorpions they do have on those boats. So there is some stuff that questions to be raised about that. It was a great scene, but there are questions about it. But again, it was a great scene, and those are more of nitpicks, really, than anything. But yeah. So then we cut to not the Unsullied, we cut to the Golden Company, and we see this guy, and then we see Grey Worm, we see the two opposing sides, we see all the Stark soldiers, and they're here to get revenge for everything, the whole show. And we see this guy, and there's rumbling in the distance, and they don't know exactly what's happening, and then all of a sudden, boom, just like that, the dragon comes in and just explodes the gate, just like that, and Drogon comes in. It's actually a little bit confusing when the explosion happens and when Drogon shows up. The time, it feels like Drogon should have showed up a little bit earlier. That's, again, a nitpick. I'm really good at nitpicking stuff. I'm not actually, I just nitpick way too much. And then we had this great shot of this character whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, but we see the shot where it turns around of just him, and then we see all these people coming towards him, and then there's notably more Dothraki hits. It seems there's a couple dozen of those, and then of course Grey Worm takes him out, and this is of course the start of Grey Worm basically going crazy, killing people, and understandably too. And of course when we see some Dothraki marching, it seems to be that there's maybe about a couple dozen of them in this episode, which seems like a bit more than it was in episode 3, but whatever, it's not that big of a deal. It's again more of a little bit of a nitpick. And then moving on, we just see Drogon absolutely annihilate these scorpions. They just get taken down so easily with that dragon fire, and we see so many people just get annihilated. I'm pretty sure these people are the Golden Company at the moment, just absolutely destroyed by that dragon fire. Just crazy how quickly they're taken out. And Cersei sees it, and she's she was not expecting it to happen that quickly. She was not expecting that much damage to be done that quickly. I'm sure she was expecting Drogon to be able to be taken out by those scorpions, and then this happens, and she's just, very surprised. And then we just see Drogon just taking out even more scorpions. The scorpions just, I guess they just like that. Drogon comes from the side. They don't have time to maneuver themselves into position. As we saw earlier, they are a little bit difficult to maneuver. And then they're just taken out just like that. It's crazy. And then we just see, Cersei in here with Qyburn, and it's just wow. And this is a great shot, by the way, of Grey Worm and Jon and Davos as they all march into King's Landing, ready to take it over. And then we see the confrontation between these two sides. We see the Stark people and the Lannisters, and then we see them looking at each other, and then we see Tyrion looking at the bells. He's waiting because he's been very clear about this, and he knows when the bells ring, that means that they've surrendered. And then we see Jaime. He's making his way to Cersei. How? Well, we'll see a little later. We just see all these great reactions of people for what's happening. And that really adds to the episode, seeing how everyone feels about everything that's going on. If we didn't have that, the episode really wouldn't be as good, because here we get lots of great shots of Cersei, which I really appreciated. And by the way, this is a wonderful shot of Drogon and Dany on Drogon, and that's a great shot. And we see the conflict in Jon, seeing all these people. Of course, he doesn't really want to murder them. Jon doesn't like murdering people. He does when he has to, but he doesn't want to. And then they just throw down the swords, just like that. They surrender. They throw them down, and there's no reason to attack them. And by the way, this is a great shot of King's Landing, the Red Keep, and all of the burning ships on the outside. That was good. And then we just see so many great shots of people, just how they're feeling, and it's great. And then Jaime's continuously trying to make his way back. We see Tyrion, he's waiting for those bells to be rung. Dany, she got her eye on the Red Keep. And Cersei, she's well aware of where Dany's at. And then Tyrion, of course, Tyrion really, really doesn't want this to go down. Tyrion really wants those bells to ring and wants Dany to be calmed down, because she's hungry for blood. And then we see her, the look on her face, and it's wonderfully acted by Emilia Clarke. That was great. And then just so many great reaction shots, both reaction shots and just shots of the actors acting and showing us how they're feeling. And they're really good at that, because they're actors. And then finally the bells ring, which means it's over. The situation's calmed down. They've surrendered. They can peacefully take King's Landing. Nothing has to happen. Okay? Jon, he knows this. The bells have rung. It's all over. Cersei knows the bells have rung. Her troops are done fighting. Tyrion knows this, but he looks to Dany. And then we see Dany, and this look on her face of just not having enough, of just wanting more, of just that fire and blood. We've seen her kill many people before. She's always taken pleasure in that, except for very early in this episode. And now she's about to take pleasure in killing more people. Maybe she thought that this would be enough, just killing these people, and then they surrendered, and it wasn't. And she's lost so many people, and she's just lost so much. She's been betrayed. She's been hurt. And now that leads to this. Her inner Targaryen being unleashed, which we have seen. We have very much seen across this entire show all that she's done, how she's punished people, and the pleasure that she's taken in doing that. That has been shown, and I do appreciate that. And she looks at the Red Keep, and she decides that there's going to be fire and blood, that she hasn't had enough. And Emilia Clarke plays this scene brilliantly, as she takes off on her dragon and just is ready to just take the city. Just take it. And the look on Tyrion's face, he's shocked. He's like, what have I done? I can't stop this. There's nothing that I can do about this. And then Cersei is, again, nothing she can do about it. And then we see this great shot of the dragon's shadow over King's Landing, which is, I believe, not the exact same shot that Bran had in his vision, but it's very similar, and it does remind me of that. And that was a great shot that I appreciated so much that was in this episode, because even though I'm pretty sure it wasn't exactly the same shot, it clicked in my brain as being the same shot, so I was able to remember that, and that kind of added to this episode. And then, of course, it comes up, and the dragon comes in, and we just see her, and she just starts taking out buildings, taking out Lannister soldiers, taking out civilians. These are great shots, by the way, but it was, the first time I watched this, I've seen it twice, was shocking. I was absolutely shocked. I did expect her going into this episode to go basically Mad Queen. I had some conversations with some people, and ultimately I decided, everything, like the way the last episode ended, it was very clear this was the direction that was headed, that she was going to kill people, that there was going to be fire and blood, that this is what was going to happen. What I did not expect was for it to be this extreme, for her to be killing civilians and this many. I really did not expect that. And we just see some great horrific shots and some great reaction shots from Tyrion, from Jon, just all these people that are like, I can't do anything about the situation. She has lost it. And then Grey Worm sees that and takes it as a signal and just starts taking down Lannister soldiers. And then don't have their weapons on them. They've dropped them to the ground, and they're panicking, frantically trying to get their weapons. And this is just really well done as Jon tries to keep people from fighting, and to no avail. And Grey Worm just having at it. And we see so many great, terrible shots of just King's Landing being demolished, these people being destroyed, being burned. Cersei looking at this, just surprised, just seeing all of the death in front of her, and just there's nothing she can do. But I mean, she doesn't really care about the people of King's Landing, but it's still a message, and Lena does play with that scene really well, and I appreciate that. And there's a million great shots. I'm going to show quite a few of them if I'm being honest. So many great reaction shots. Davos trying to save people as Davos would. Great. This great shot of stuff happening in the background as this girl tries to hide. Jon just I guess not perplexed, but just in shock at what's happening. And this Lannister soldier trying to save people's lives. That was one of my favorite shots, just because of what it meant, these people, the Lannisters, are the ones trying to save the civilians. And of course we get this great scene moment, really, where Jon comes and he tries to kill this man who I took it was trying to rape this woman. It's possible that's not what they were trying to portray, but that is what I got from the scene, and some people got a different interpretation. But Jon kills him, and I did like that. But that was like the one great thing that Jon did in this episode, was kill this dude. That was awesome. And then he's like, oh yeah, go to safety. And more great shots, and we just see how the Red Keep is getting shaken, and rebels coming down, and all these people are getting destroyed. There's so many great shots of that, and this is there's a couple of shots here. Actually, it's the same shot where we can see King's Landing from atop, and I like how we can really see everything. Not like everything, but this area of King's Landing, we can see everything. There's lots of stuff here, and that was done really well. And then Drogon comes in and just takes out this giant tower, which of course just gets taken down and provides for many great shots. And we have this scene between Jaime and Euron, and obviously it's a little bit convenient that Euron just happens to wash up on shore exactly as Jaime comes right by here, and in the same place. Like, it is a little convenient, but it didn't bother me that much. It's not the kind of thing that I really bothers me. It's more of like a nitpick that I just kind of go, that's a little convenient. But it did lead to a solid scene between them two, and I'm not going to show a lot of shots of this scene, but it was great. And deep down I knew that Jaime wasn't going to survive, wasn't going to die, but in my head I was still really worried because what if he died? And of course he did get stabbed a couple of times. He got stabbed here, and Jaime is my second favorite Game of Thrones character, so if something had happened to him here I would have been really mad. But yeah, so then of course we see Cersei. Great scene between her and Qyburn. He tells her that, you know, all the Scorpions have been taken out, and she's realizing that her kingdom is falling. And he's like, the safest place is some keep or another, I can't remember. And they're like, okay, we're gonna go. And then we see all the dragon fire amidst some wildfire that had also been ignited, which was a really cool image, and also was a neat little touch that there would be some wildfire in places that got ignited as well. So I did appreciate that. And then of course, after being stabbed a second time, Jaime does get Euron, and then he gets away, and Euron's like, I'm the man who killed Jaime Lannister, even though he is not, which is satisfying for me that he did not kill Jaime Lannister, and that Jaime managed to kill Euron. It was a good scene. It was a good scene. And then there's a moment between the Hound and Arya that I really liked, where he tells her, Arya, don't do this. You're going to die. Cersei will die somehow, and you're going to die, so please just leave. And I appreciate how it really emphasizes their relationship, and that was really great, because, like, you know, obviously they had that whole thing in series 4, and, you know, she used to hate him, and of course they're not like best friends now, but he saves her. He's like, no, just leave. She's going to die. Like, the kingdom is falling down. She's gonna die. So just leave, save yourself. And I really, really, really like this moment between them. And the two actors, Maisie Williams and Rory, are just great. And I really just enjoyed this scene. And of course, she calls him Sandor, which was like, oh, wow. And then of course we come back to Cersei, and the Red Keep is falling down. And I like this moment where the mountain is above her and protects her from the falling debris because he's this giant. And then finally we have it. The Hound, the mountain, they're here. It's great. We see it in his eyes. He's like, hello, big brother. And then we see just the two of them. And this is like a little thing. I really kind of like the look of Qyburn with his hair all messed up. I don't know exactly why I like that, but I just felt the need to mention that. And then Qyburn tries to get the mountain to not do this. He's like, dude, protect your queen. You know, this is just some dude. And that gets him killed. I went past it, but that got him killed really quickly. Just boom. That was such a quick death that really surprised me. And then Cersei's like, okay, I can't be here. I'm gonna sneak by. And then she walks by. She kind of gives this little look like, I think I can go by, but I'm not totally sure. And then she makes it, and she's fine, because of course the Hound doesn't care about Cersei at all. This is the reason he's here, is for his big brother. That's the reason that he came back to King's Landing. He doesn't give a crap about all the politics of Westeros and everything that's going down. And that's why I really like this shot, because it emphasizes all of this stuff is happening. There's this giant dragon breathing fire behind them. There's this whole place is falling apart, but all these people care about is each other, and that was great. And then of course his helmet gets removed, and we see how messed up his face is, which is great. And next, oh my gosh, we get the moment between Cersei and Jaime, which is a great moment. They reunite. It feels like they've been gone. They have not been together for a couple of seasons, when in actuality they saw each other about 5 episodes ago, which would have been months in the show's timeline. But it feels like a while, and that was done well. And I just really like that scene between them. And then we go back to Arya. Arya has some great stuff in here where she's just trying to survive. There's all the stuff going down. There's so much with it. There's lots of great long shots, which I really appreciated. She gets thrown to the ground, which was a moment that like had me like, because it was very similar to the Jon's moment when he was on the ground in Battle of the Bastards, and I just was like, don't do this to her. I kind of didn't think she was gonna die, but I was also really, really worried that they would just kill her off in some stupid way, and I would be annoyed with that. But then this woman we had seen earlier picks her up and helps her out, and then we are intercut between these two. We also have the fight between the Clegane Bowl. You know, the fight between the Hound and the Mountain. But the moment when Arya is on the ground at her lowest is also the moment when Sandor, the Hound, is on the ground at his lowest. So that was done really well. And then we have this moment when the Mountain is trying to Oberyn him. She's trying to squeeze his eyes in and crush his skull. And then I really like how he feels around his head he finds his eye so that he's able to use his other hand to stab him through the other eye. That was a really neat touch, because obviously he can't see, his eyes are getting squished in. And then that's that. I mean, yeah, he has this moment where he just is starting to like take the knife out of his head. We see that it didn't do anything to him. He's perfectly fine. And the Hound is like, there's one way I'm going to take my big brother out. And he just runs at him, charges him, takes him through the crumbling wall that's falling apart. And we have this great shot of the two of them falling to their demise in fire, which is just absolutely really well done. I kind of was somehow expecting the Hound to survive going into this season, but then no, it kind of makes more sense. I really like how the Clegane Bowl ended up. It was really satisfying. It was really well done, and it was just a great moment. And we of course see more wildfire, dragonfire, lots of great shots of what's going on. Jon trying to get everyone out. He's like, everybody get out of here, come on, it's time to go, we've done enough here. People just evacuating. And then we see Arya with someone else's blood just splattered on her. That's pretty messed up. And she's trying to run away. She's like just gotten up from being unconscious, and now there's this building crashing down, and it's like she could have technically just ran back there and been fine, but I mean, you know, she didn't necessarily know that when she was running away from it, that it was going to fall in this direction, but she figured out pretty quickly. So she survived, and there's lots of great shots of Arya, and Maisie Williams is absolutely fantastic in this episode. She's just great. And then we see her with all these people. She's like, hey, I'm gonna save you, we can't stay here, something bad's gonna happen, we gotta get out of here. And she tries, and then she looks and she sees the dragon coming for them, and then she tries to get this woman and her daughter away, and she fails, and they die. And then we have this scene down under King's Landing with Jaime and Cersei, and we see how everything is blocked off by rubble. They're going to go this way, but where Jaime came from, but it's been blocked off. And we've just got this great, fantastic scene between Jaime and Cersei, where she has lost everything. This is a horrible death for her. She has lost everything. She's at her lowest point. Everybody has... her kingdom, her King's Landing is falling down. She is not in charge of anything. Her children are dead. This is a really messed up way. This is a really messed up place for her to be in right now. And she's in a place where she can't even save her own child. And Jaime just tries to comfort her, and he's like, hey, we're the only ones that matter. Us. We're the ones that count. And then they hug, and it's this fantastic scene between the two as the rebel comes from behind and destroys them as everything falls down. And it's honestly, it's a great death between the two of them. It's really sad. The first time I watched it, I was really crushed that Jaime had died this way, and I was like, oh no, come on, because it's just so sad to me that this is the way he went, was going back with the woman who was not healthy for him. That to me is just really sad, and I found that to be quite a sad exit for Jaime, but an appropriate one. Some people complained about it as if this is not a realistic decision for him to make, but I completely disagree. I think this was always a possibility, and this is just, to me, really just gets me right in the gut of like, oh, I really wish he had not gone that way, but he did. So, you know what? That's sad. That's a very sad death, and I even found myself caring for Cersei in this moment, which I know nobody could ever do, or many people could never do, but I found myself going, man, poor Cersei. This is a legitimately sad exit for these two characters, and I thought it was a brilliant scene. And then the final moment of the episode is with Arya, and she just is looking around at everything in this kind of hyper-realistic situation, and looking at what's going on, and just seeing all the ash, all of the rubble, all of the death. Oh, of course we have the dead bodies, which is a moment for Arya, and there's one, we see her reaction to that, she's crying, we see a horse, and there's just the whole scene is done really well. So I guess just a big shout out to the entire scene for being really well filmed and really well presented and really uniquely done, and it just was very, very... a very good moment to end the episode on. Very appropriate moment to leave off after the way that after the way that the whole episode had gone. It was very appropriate, I thought. So yeah, this whole scene was just shot really well, and this led to one of my favorite shots of the episode. It's just a really good shot with all the light coming from behind Arya, who's now really dark from all the ash and everything, and the little fires around us. Just a really great shot. And then we see the horse, and then she leaves. And that's that. And I just thought that was a very appropriate moment to end this kind of an episode on, this kind of whoa, that's what happened episode. Overall, I thought this episode was fantastic. I ultimately had a couple of little nitpicks of little things that didn't quite work for me, but there was so much that worked that it completely outweighed the small things that didn't work in this episode for me. There's all the scenes from the beginning of the episode with Varys, that was such an unfortunate death, and everything that happened, just the surprises and the deaths. This episode had a higher death count than I would have predicted, and it was just very, very well done. This execution of this episode was really important, because this is where Daenerys goes full Mad Queen, and we kind of knew that this was going to happen based on last episode, but to this degree, I never would have predicted that. This was just really well handled. So many great scenes between characters, so many great reaction shots, tons of gorgeous shots of destruction, as terrible as that sounds. And just the whole episode was paced really well. Nothing felt rushed or poorly executed. It was just all done really well, and I really appreciated the care and the effort that went into making this episode as good as it could be. Seeing just so many moments that finally concluded certain characters' arcs were just very well handled. The death of Jaime and Cersei was brilliant. The Clegane Bowl was brilliant. The Mad Queen Daenerys Targaryen was brilliant. There was so much that was just executed really well, and so many great moments throughout the episode. Everything was just handled on a top-notch level. And this episode, I don't think I prefer it to The Long Night, but it was a brilliant episode, and I just want to emphasize how important this episode was. So much happened, and it was just a really excellent execution of some very important things, and I found it to be a very satisfying episode, and I thought that The Bells was fantastic. So I'm going to give The Bells a rating of 10 out of 10. So those are my thoughts on The Bells, what I thought was a really fantastic episode, and it's been a very mixed reception of this episode so far. I want to apologize right now for this review taking about 2 weeks longer than it should have. I knew I wasn't going to be able to get it out that first week just because I hadn't entirely made up my mind on it, and there wasn't time to film it and edit it, so I was not able to get it out that week. But I thought I'll just get it out next week, and I forgot that next week was just an insanely busy week for me. So I really apologize that was not able to happen, and that I'm finally getting it out. If I'm able to do this when I want to, it should be coming out May 31st, but it might be a little bit later than that depending on how quickly I can edit this thing together. So I just apologize for all of the delays that I've had while making this review. There's been a lot of complications, and I'm really sorry about that. Actually, even just sitting down and recording this review, where I would normally record in my room, there was just tons of disruptions nearby, and I literally moved my entire computer setup to the opposite end of the house just to be able to record this video, because it was just taking too long to find time when there was no disruption, and I was able to do this. So yeah, there's just tons of complications, lots of stuff going wrong, but ultimately I was able to, and I'm glad I was able to talk about this episode. What I thought was a great episode. I'm really curious what you guys think about this episode, so be sure to let me know. Were there parts you loved, parts you hated? I know it's been a very controversial episode. Some people hate it, some people love it, like myself. But I'm curious what you guys think, so be sure to let me know about that. If you join me this coming Sunday, then I should be having, I believe, a review of Doctor Who, the Sensorites, a classic Who episode, and my review of the Game of Thrones finale will be out soon. I am hoping that I can get it out Saturday, but if I can't edit it today, then it won't come out until next week. So if it doesn't come out in the morning on Saturday, like 7 a.m. PST, then it's going to be next week. It's probably going to be next week, unfortunately. But I'll give my thoughts on the finale as soon as possible, and then I've got some more Game of Thrones videos lined up, some more Doctor Who videos lined up, but I'm hoping to get this one out this week. So yeah, sorry for all the complications, all the delays, lots of stuff went wrong, but fortunately this video is finally getting recorded, and I have lots of the editing done. There's just more to do. So anyway, that's going to do it for now, folks. Be sure to let me know what you thought about The Bells, and if you join me in the next week or so, then I'll have a review up for the finale. So, thank you for watching. Take care, and have a lovely week.